Welcome everyone to Include NYC Online, tips for getting your child to wear a mask. Elizabeth Golini will be leading today's discussion.
My name is Elizabeth Golini. I'm the Director of Parent and Family Engagement here at Include NYC for school age. Tonight we're going to be talking about some tips to get your child to wear a mask. What our agenda for this evening is, we're going to start with talking about the basics. Then we're going to talk specifically about some proactive strategies you can use to help your child. We'll talk about what you should do while your child is wearing the mask. And then we'll talk about what you should do if your child is refusing to wear the mask and what you can do there. And then we'll have some time at the end of the presentation to take questions. Like Rich said, if you have questions, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to note those questions, and I'd be happy to answer them at the end of the presentation. Thanks so much for joining us. So let's get started. So the first thing is just a disclaimer before we start. I'm not a doctor. I'm also not a medical professional. If you have specific medical concerns about your child wearing a mask, I would encourage you to speak with your child's pediatrician. I'm also not a public health official, so I'm not able to answer questions related to the rules and requirements of mask wearing. What I am able to do is offer some tips and tricks for how to help your child wear a mask. I'm a board-certified behavior analyst and a licensed behavior analyst in the state of New York. So that's what I'm going to do for you this evening while we're having our time together. So when we talk about the basics, the first thing to know is that the basics of what a mask is it should cover your child's nose and your child's mouth, and it can take many forms. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute, and I'm going to show you a couple of different masks. So can you see me? Great. So what some of these masks might look like, this one is, it goes around your neck, so you can see that it's a piece of fabric that's around my neck. I can pull it up, and I can cover my nose and my mouth with the mask, and it goes all the way around my neck. So this is something that you can use as a mask. These are commonly used for outdoor activities in the winter or for camping. So it's sometimes referred to as like a neck warmer or a ski collar. So that's one type of mask. Can also have a professionally made mask like this one that goes over your nose, over your mouth, and around your ears, just like this. There are also homemade masks. You can find patterns online to make masks. Oops, those look like this, right? Again, going around your ears. You can use a bandana and tie it around the back of your head like this, right? So lots of different options. Or a medical mask like this one. So this goes around the back of your head and covers your nose and your mouth. So those are just a couple different mask options. I'm going to share my screen again, and we'll keep talking about tips and tricks to get your child to wear a mask. Great. So if you have questions about when and where a mask should be worn, I would encourage you to see city and state specific guidance for when and where they should be worn. So when we're talking about masks, I just showed you a variety of masks. So I showed you 5 different masks. If it's age appropriate, I would encourage you to allow your child to choose the mask style that they like. So everyone has different preferences. And it'll be dependent on a wide variety of things. Some children may prefer to have a mask that's around their neck that they can just pull up and put down. Some kids may prefer a bandana. Some kids may not want something tied around the back of their head, so they may do better with a mask that has elastic around the ears. Some kids may not be comfortable with cloth and may prefer a more medical style mask. So your child may be more interested in the mask that they choose rather than you as the parent saying, this is the mask that you have to wear. If you have the ability, I would allow your child the opportunity to touch different masks, feel what they look like, to determine which style or type they would like. Your child can also decorate the mask with stickers, markers, paint, glitter, whatever they want to make it feel more their own. You saw that one of the masks that I had with sort of an orangey yellow color with polka dots. I personally really love polka dots, so that's why I was drawn to that particular style. I also have one that's black, and there are people who would prefer just really simple. So again, a little bit of choice can be helpful in here. So now we're going to talk about some other proactive strategies around wearing masks. So when we talk about and think about addressing masks in a way that's proactive, there are 5 things that I want you to think about. The first thing we're going to talk about is sharing information. We're going to talk about modeling, how to make it fun, how to use routines, and how to use rules and expectations for addressing mask wearing. So when we talk about sharing information, the first thing you're going to want to do is explain to your child why they need to wear a mask. So when you're doing this, you're going to want to be mindful of how old your child is and their level of understanding. For some children, talking about germs may make them more anxious. For other kids, that may be a good way to talk about it. I would advise that the conversation happens when everybody's calm, everybody feels safe, you're at home or in another place where you feel safe. Other things you might want to consider trying are using a social story. So I know Rich is going to put a couple of links in our chat box for 2 social stories that you can use with your children around why and how to wear masks. Other things that can help are to look at photos of people wearing masks and talk about the masks that they're wearing and why they might be wearing masks. When you're doing all of this information sharing, the things to be really mindful of and to remember are that you should allow your child some time to process the information, right? So wearing masks is a new concept for a lot of kids. And so your child may need some time to figure out what that means for them, what it looks like, what it will feel like, and how they feel about it. So give them some time to process. The other thing to remember with this idea of sharing information about why your child is wearing a mask is that you may need to talk about this multiple times, right? This is probably not a conversation that you'll be able to have once and then be done talking about. This may be something that your child wants to talk about multiple times. I would recommend checking in with your child periodically to make sure that they don't have any other questions. And I think also being aware of other media that your child may get that provides information around wearing a mask and making sure that they don't have questions or concerns about any of that. Other things you can do to help model mask wearing to help your child is show your child you wearing a mask. So you wearing a mask at home, showing them what it looks like, that can be really powerful. So I showed you a variety of different masks, and I would encourage you, if you would like, this presentation will be put up on YouTube. You can find that little snippet of the presentation where I'm showing the different mask types and show that to your child as an image or a video of how to wear a mask and to show them what different masks might look like so that your child can say and can indicate to you, I'm interested in that kind, or I want one that looks like that. Because like we talked about before, that idea of choice is really important. Other things that can be really helpful to model it, your child can practice putting a mask on dolls or on stuffed animals. They can do some art projects like coloring or drawing a picture of someone wearing a mask and talk about what that might feel like. I know Rich is also going to drop a couple coloring sheets in the chat box for you that are sheets that you can print for your child to be able to color in pictures of people wearing masks. The last thing to do is when your child is wearing a mask, give them some time to look at themselves in the mirror with the mask on and think about and explore what that looks like with them. So really this idea here of showing them lots of different models of different people wearing masks. Other things you can do depending on, of course, your child's age and if your neighbors would be okay with it, is if you have neighbors who live nearby who you have relationships with, who would be comfortable with it. If you go on a walk with your child and you see one of your neighbors, you can say, hey, look, there's Catherine. She's wearing a mask. Do you see the mask she has on? What color is it? right? And provide your child with more models of people wearing masks to sort of normalize and show them that wearing masks is okay. There are lots of people doing it, and that they will also be wearing a mask. So this idea of modeling can really help with your child and their mask wearing. Other things that can help are to make it fun, right? So we want to try to make mask wearing as fun as we can. Things that can make wearing a mask fun are letting your child choose the mask that they want. Like I mentioned, I like polka dots, so I have a mask that has polka dots on it because it's something that I like and something that I think is pretty neat and cool, and so that's on my mask. So if you know that your child really likes a specific color, if possible, can they have a mask that's in that color? If they really like a specific character, is there a mask that has that character on it? All of those kinds of things. Also letting them choose the format of the mask, whether it's one that goes around the neck, like a bandana, or the over the ear style. You can also let your child decorate the mask as much as possible. So they could color on it, they could put stickers on it, they could put glitter on it, and that can help them to feel like the mask is more fun and more exciting for them. Other things to try to make it fun is to make wearing a mask into a little bit of a game. Thinking about how a lot of superheroes wear masks, and now your child wears a mask, so they're like a superhero. Can practice superhero poses in the mirror while they're wearing their mask. Practice your best superhero faces in the mirror. Practice your superhero poses. All of that kind of stuff can be really fun and something that you can do with your child in the mask. Other things to try to make mask wearing fun is to make funny faces. So practice making funny faces while wearing the mask and see if you can guess what kind of funny face your child is making. You can also do it where you both put your masks on, make a funny face, take the masks off and see if your faces match, see if you're making the same kind of funny face. So just some ideas to make wearing a mask a little bit more fun, make it a little bit more engaging, and add an element of play as a proactive strategy can be really powerful and really meaningful for your child. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about in terms of proactive strategies for mask wearing is creating a routine around wearing a mask. So what that routine might look like is figuring out where in your house do you store your masks? When do you put them on? Is there reinforcement at the end? And we'll talk a little bit more at the end of the talk about what I mean by reinforcement. And so that routine might be that we store masks on the closet doorknob, and we pick one up before we're leaving to walk out the door to go for a walk. We put it on in our apartment. We walk out the door. When we walk outside, we have our mask on. It might, for other families, look like maybe you put the mask on earlier before you leave. You put the mask on first, then you put your shoes on. You might do shoes first, then the mask. So play around with this idea of creating a routine, and that can help to build a habit so that wearing a mask becomes something that is an expected and normalized behavior for your child, so that they know anytime I leave, I'm going to put a mask on. I always know where to find my mask, and I know what to do with it when I get home after I've been wearing the mask. The other things to think about in here is practicing that routine, right? So anytime we're trying to create a routine or a habit, we're going to need to practice it. So offer opportunities for practice, times when you're not actually going to be leaving. You just practice. Hey, let's practice putting our masks on and getting ready to go. Okay, great. You did a nice job practicing, just to build up the habit. Other things to think about are if there are any rules or expectations that you have about mask wearing, which we'll talk about in just a minute. I would suggest embedding those into the routine. So it might be that the routine looks like mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or your aunt gives you a 1-minute review of the rules and expectations when we're out of the house and have a mask on. Then you put your mask on, then you put your shoes on, then you leave. And when you come home, you know to take your mask off, and that then you move on with your day at home. So when we talk about rules and expectations, this, of course, is going to depend on your child's age. But I would recommend, again, thinking about the age of your child, setting clear rules around mask wearing, that we wear masks when we're outside of the house, and explaining why, and that's just a rule that you have if that's which is something that I would recommend. And also setting expectations around how long we're wearing a mask. Things that can help with that are using a timer or considering the length of the event. Like, you'll wear your mask while we walk to the doctor's office and on the way home. I would also think about, for your, based on your child's age, rules or expectations around touching their mask, rules or expectations around, if you touch your mask, then you need to wash your hands or use hand sanitizer. Again, those are things that you'll want to think about, and make that individual and specific based upon your child and what their specific needs are. But the more that you can make it clear what you expect, what the routine is, and what the rules are around mask wearing proactively, the more successful you'll be. So all of these proactive strategies that we've talked about are things that you can do ahead of time before you're leaving. So these are things that I would recommend practicing, thinking about, trying with your children ahead of time. They're going to be more effective the more that you practice them and the more that you work on them. So if you know that you guys are going someplace, or that your child needs to wear a mask for a specific event that's coming up, I would recommend starting to think about these proactive strategies as far in advance as you can. They're not going to be as effective if you start them the morning of an activity where your child needs to wear a mask, or if you start them, 10 minutes before you need to walk out the door, right? The idea with a lot of these is that they're things that we start working on, and we're working on slowly and gradually, and giving ourselves a little bit of time around that. So just something to think about with the proactive strategies. The earlier you can start these kinds of conversations and these kinds of strategies, the more effective they'll be for you and for your family. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what you should do while your child is actively wearing their mask. So this is when they're wearing their mask, what are things that you can do? What are tips and tricks that may help once they're already wearing the mask and probably out and about? So what to do when your child is already wearing the mask? There are a few things that I want you to think about. The first is this idea of praise and reinforcement, like we spoke about earlier. And that also includes that idea of rules and expectations, like we talked about a few minutes ago. And also the idea of modeling again. And we'll talk a little bit more about what those mean. So when we talk about praise and reinforcement, what I want you to think about is that when your child is wearing their mask, whether you're out or whether you're doing a practice session at home with wearing the mask, provide lots of praise when your child is wearing their mask. Now, praise is something that is typically really effective for most kids. There may need to be a little bit of individualization based on your child's age, based on your child's needs. Littler kids may be okay with you calling out, "Oh my gosh, Henry, you're doing such a great job wearing your mask." If you have a 17-year-old, they may not be okay and may not like mom or dad being like, "Oh my gosh, Henry, you're doing such a great job wearing your mask," right? So think about your child, talk to your child, figure out what kind of praise they like. It's probably something that you're already aware of, but just something to be mindful of when using praise. And so you want to provide a lot of praise when your child is wearing their mask, right? We want to recognize and reinforce all of the good behavior that we see. So thinking about telling them that they're doing a good job, that you love the way they're wearing their mask, the way that they're not touching their face, any of those kinds of things can be really helpful while they are actively wearing the mask. Other things to think about are, you may want to consider reinforcement with an item if needed. And so what I mean by that is something that is additional, something else that we're giving to help your child know that they're doing a good job wearing the mask. So what that might look like is you might have a cup, and if you have something that your child really likes, Doritos, M&Ms, pretzels, raisins, whatever it might be, and you're just popping them in the cup and saying, oh my gosh, you're doing such a great job wearing your mask. I'm going to throw another M&M in your cup, and when you get home and we take your mask off, you can eat all these M&Ms. You're doing such a great job wearing your mask. I'm so impressed. I'm so proud of you. I've also seen this done with smaller kids, toddlers, where they stop at a bakery on your way, grab something or bring from home a cookie, something special that when you take your mask off, remember you're going to get this delicious treat, right? If you don't want to use food, which I totally understand, can also do things like high fives along the way, tickles, squeezes, all of that. That can also be paired with verbal praise. If your child likes physical attention and affection like that, again, that's something that's probably dependent on your child's age. I have a toddler. He loves high fives. He loves tickles. He loves squeezes. I don't think a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old would like that. But again, that's something that you'll want to talk about with your child to figure out what's the thing that is interesting and motivating for them. And then this last thing that you can consider for reinforcement is access to a preferred activity when you get home. So telling your child before you leave or when you're doing a practice mask wearing session, hey, we're going to wear your mask for a little while, and when we get home, we can watch some Harry Potter, you can play Minecraft, you can, play cards or do whatever is an activity that your child likes or prefers, to sort of help reinforce that idea of wearing a mask. The last thing about praise and reinforcement is if you have set rules or expectations for your child around wearing the mask, provide praise for following the rules or meeting your expectations. So if you have said that the rule is we don't touch our masks and your child is not touching the mask, provide a lot of praise. Let them know that you see that they are following the rule, meeting your expectations. So providing a lot of praise and attention and reinforcement as needed can really be helpful while your child is wearing the mask. The next thing I'm going to want you to think about while your child is actively wearing the mask is, again, this idea of modeling. So when we talked about modeling before, we talked about showing them yourself or other people wearing masks. And so what we're talking about now is still sort of similar to that idea. So if you want your child to be wearing a mask, model that for them. Show them that you're wearing a mask. The other thing that you can do and provide as a model for them, so a verbal model, is talk out loud about wearing the mask to them, right? So if I have my mask on and it's starting to feel a little bit itchy or uncomfortable, instead of just reaching up and fixing it or ignoring it, it could be really helpful for your child to say out loud, oh, say your child's name is Julie. Oh, Julie, my mask feels a little bit itchy. I'm going to try adjusting the strap over here on my ear. I'm not going to take it off because we're out right now and I need to keep my mask on so that everybody stays safe, but I'm going to try moving the strap and see if that helps. I'm not going to touch the front of my mask, but I am going to move the straps around. Okay, that really helped. Oh, that feels so much better, right? Other things you can do is model that behavior around when you're about to leave. Okay, we're about to leave to go on a walk, guys. We're going to go walk the dog around the block. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I almost forgot to put my mask on. Wow, let me go get my mask. I'm going to put my mask on. And now we're going to leave. And then the other things you can try, again, this idea of modeling and talking out loud about wearing a mask is telling your child, oh, wow, I'm going to look at myself in the mirror. I look so cool with this mask on. I could be a superhero. This is so fun. This is so cool. Whatever language works for your child. What you're doing here when you do this is you're helping your child to think about some different ways that they can problem solve when their mask maybe feels uncomfortable, right? So you've shown them in that example about the mask feeling itchy that they could reach up and adjust the straps. They could reach up and adjust the knot in the back if you have a bandana style mask, right? But you're also letting them know the expectation is that we're not going to take it off because we need to stay safe, right? You're also, when you're talking about modeling, we're going to leave for a walk, forgetting to put on the mask. You're again modeling the importance of that routine and having a routine around, we're going to leave, we need to put on a mask, that part. And then that last one is showing them and modeling the idea that wearing the mask can be fun, or there can be parts about it that are fun or exciting for your child. So the next thing we're going to talk about is what to do specifically when your child won't wear a mask, right? So these are just some tips and tricks to think about in terms of getting them to wear the mask if they won't. And we'll talk a little bit about some specific concerns that your child might have around mask wearing. So the first, oh, we went the wrong way. Sorry about that, guys. So the first thing we're going to do, if you need help, is we're going to think about 4 specific things. Rich is going to put some links in the chat box that deal with this more specifically for your review if you'd like more information around problem solving if your child won't wear a mask. So the 4 things we're going to talk about, we're going to try resetting mask wearing. We can try some specific redirection. We'll talk a little bit about specific concerns that your child might have. And then we'll talk a little bit about using shaping procedures and what that might look like if your child is having difficulty wearing the mask. So when we talk about the reset, what I want you to think about here is this idea of just resetting everything about mask wearing when your child is calm and feels safe and feels comfortable, right? So if you get home, your child was refusing to wear their mask, everybody's really upset, everything's heightened, we're going to want to wait until everybody's calm, everybody feels safe, everybody feels comfortable, everybody feels in control, right? So we want to make sure that what we're doing here is resetting our expectations, talking a little bit about why we need to wear masks and all of that, and that we're not punishing. We want to make sure kids feel safe. They're going to be more receptive to the information if they feel safe, if they're calm, they're comfortable. You may also be feeling a little bit frustrated or agitated because your child isn't wearing the mask, and that's really frustrating. So you're also going to want to give yourself a little bit of time to sort of reset and make sure that you're calm and you feel safe. You take a deep breath. Everybody feels okay. Everybody's safe. Everybody's comfortable, right? So when you're trying to reset, the things that I would want to think about are you're going to want to talk to your child again about why they need to wear a mask, right? So we'll talk about the importance of mask wearing, how it keeps everyone safe, all of that kind of stuff. Again, model mask wearing like we talked about before. So you can model you wearing a mask. You can have your child wear a mask, look in the mirror. You can try some of the art activities related to mask wearing, like we mentioned before, your child drawing a picture of someone wearing a mask, your child coloring in pictures of someone wearing a mask, putting a mask on a preferred toy or a stuffed animal, something like that. This would also be a good time to try a social story. That can sometimes really help to simplify and break things down. So a social story will be a short, picture-based story with anywhere between 4 to 10 pictures that really breaks down in really clear, explicit terms for kids why they're wearing a mask, why it's important, and what it will feel like and what they can do. If you use a social story, I would encourage you to spend some time with your child with the social story, read it to them a couple of times, talk about the pictures. I would incorporate it into your routine, that you review the social story before you leave, or you review the social story about mask wearing once a day, something like that. You'll see what feels right and feels comfortable for you and for your family. Other things to think about with this reset is you want to make sure the mask is comfortable. So it might be that your child is refusing to wear the mask because something about it is uncomfortable, right? The mask is too big, the mask is too small, the elastic is too tight around their ears, it's tied too tight around the back of their head, they're getting really hot underneath, any number of things. So you're going to want to see about have them try the mask on, look at it, see if it looks comfortable. If it doesn't, you can try a different style of mask or talk to them about trying a different style of mask. This again might be a good time to show them a video or to look at some pictures of what different styles of masks look like, to see if there's something about the mask that is uncomfortable to them or something about it that doesn't feel good, so that you can make changes to make it feel more comfortable for your child. You're also going to want to, again, try that strategy of making it fun. So like those games we talked about before, you can add those in, again, when you're resetting. And again, that idea of using reinforcement, so praise, you maybe using items as needed for appropriate mask wearing. The other thing to remember with this idea of resetting is that it will not be an immediate process, right? So it may take a couple of days. It may take a couple, I don't think it should take too long, but it may take a couple of days. If you're finding that your child is still having trouble wearing the mask and you're having trouble around that, I would encourage you to check in with your child's pediatrician and see if they have any other tips or tricks that they'd like you to try. Or if there's any sort of skin issue or anything like that going on, they can make recommendations around that if needed for your child. So the other thing to think about is this idea of redirection. So this is something that you might use when you're out or when you're practicing. And basically when we're redirecting behavior, what we're doing is we're trying to shift behavior from the thing that our child is doing that's not what we want them to do, to get them to do the thing that we do want them to do, the right or appropriate behavior. So what this might look like is your child is wearing a mask, they start to touch it or try to remove it, try to pull it down, any of those kinds of things. So you might remind them of the right thing to do, right? So that might look like saying, I see you're touching your mask. Remember, we keep our hands in our pockets. Can you try that for me? Put those hands in those pockets. Could try that. It might look like providing a reminder about, remember, our family wears masks to stay safe when we're out on walks. We're going to be home really soon. And when we get home, you can take a break and take your mask off. I'm going to set my timer and we'll be home in 5 minutes or something like that, right? So the things we want to do here is redirect the behavior. So we're trying to get our child to move their hands away from the mask or stop trying to remove it, remind them of the right thing to do, which is putting the hands in the pockets or leaving the mask on, right? And this can also be paired with a gesture. You might point to your mask and say, look, I have my mask on, or look, your sister has her mask on, look, point to their mask. Any of those kinds of things can help to redirect with using a gesture while you're going. Other things to remember here is that if you do use redirection, which I would encourage you to try, remember to provide a lot of praise when your child listens, right? So when they start to change their behavior and they're doing well with wearing the mask, provide some praise, tell them that they're doing a good job, high fives, tickles, squeezes, whatever works for your child in particular. So think about that and trying that with your child. That can be a really helpful strategy. So now we're going to talk a little bit about some specific concerns that your child might have. And again, this is just a small selection of specific concerns. I'm happy to try to answer other specific concerns if you have them, if you note them in the Q&A box. So your child may tell you that the mask is uncomfortable. So things you can try around that. Could have your child try some different styles of masks. You could adjust where the straps are on their face. You could look at different materials for masks. You could look at, how the mask is fitting on their face. All of those kinds of things could be helpful to see if that helps with the mask making your child uncomfortable. So the big recommendation there would be, if possible, have your child try some different styles of masks, and that sometimes can help, or masks that are made out of different kinds of fabrics or different materials. I know for some kids, paper masks or the medical sort of disposable, more surgical style masks, those can start to feel uncomfortable after a while. And so cloth masks may be better for your child. So again, just something to try different styles. Other things you may want to think about in terms of style, like those masks that I showed you at the beginning, the one that is more of a dome shape is a little bit further away from your child's nose and mouth. So if it's something where they're feeling uncomfortable having fabric right up against their face, something that has more of a dome shape may be helpful there. So think about some different styles in there. They may not like having elastic that goes around the back of their head, or like this mask here that goes up over the back of your neck. They may prefer something that goes around the ears. If your child wears glasses, I wear glasses, can sometimes be uncomfortable if the straps of the mask get tangled on the glasses. So things to think about are, sometimes it helps to put the mask on first, then put the glasses on. Just things to play around with if your child is reporting that the mask is making them uncomfortable. Your child is saying, speaking of glasses, that the mask fogs up your glasses. Yes, that does happen. It's happened to me quite often. There are lots of different tricks online. I haven't tried all of them, so I can't speak to which ones are super great and which ones are not so great. I know for me, the things that have helped are to have masks that have a tighter seal on top. So this black mask has a wire at the top, so I can make it a tighter seal at the top of my nose. So that's been helpful to prevent the fogging up. That really helps. Masks that are a little bit more open at the top, like this polka dot mask, not as effective at keeping my glasses from fogging up. So for me, that's something that has worked. So that's something to try. Other things I've tried that have been successful are washing my glasses with dish soap. So just regular blue dish soap helped and made my glasses less foggy. It didn't last a super long time, but it was something that did help me personally. So I would recommend looking online. Lots of different options. There are specific products you can buy, or there are other tips and tricks you can try, like that tighter seal on the top of the nose or washing your glasses with dish soap. And I'm sure there are other tips that you could try that might be effective for your child as well. Other things that I've heard as specific concerns is kids may say, I don't like smelling my breath, because if you're wearing a mask, sometimes you're smelling your own breath. So some things you can try around that. You could try brushing your teeth in before you leave the house and before you put your mask on. Excuse me. Depending on your child's age, you could try putting scented lip balm on before putting the mask on. That can help. Something to be mindful of there. It may, if your child doesn't like the smell of the lip balm, it may make it worse. Or it may be something where the scented lip balm without a mask is fine, but then the cherry chapstick, when you have a mask on, the scent starts to feel really artificial and really overpowering. So again, something you'll need to try a couple of times. You can also try, again, depending on your child's age, a piece of gum or hard candy can be helpful, because then hopefully if you have gum or hard candy, your breath won't smell. The other thing to be mindful of, though, if you do choose to use gum, is that then what happens when your child says they're done with the gum or the gum doesn't have any more flavor, that then they would want to take their mask off. And so that's one that you would really want to time out, I think, a little bit more and think about. But I would encourage you to try some different things in there if your child is having specific concerns around mask wearing. And like I said before, there are some additional resources that Rich put in the chat box that you can look at as well. And those can help as well. So the last thing we're going to talk about in terms of mask wearing, especially if your child is having trouble wearing a mask, is this idea of a shaping procedure. So when we talk about a shaping procedure, this is going to be a little bit more intensive, labor intensive for you as a parent. And so this is going to be a little bit more prescriptive. So when we talk about a shaping procedure, basically what we're trying to do is gradually increase the amount of time your child will wear the mask in a more systemic way, right? So the things that we would do is we would start with a very, very short interval or for a very short walk or trip outside. And when I say very short, I mean maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds. And by short walk or trip outside, it might literally look like just opening the door of your house or your apartment, going into the hallway or going outside and then coming back, right? So we're going to start with a very short interval. You could even back this up further if needed. If your child, if you need to for your child, and just have it start with just holding the mask in their hands, holding the mask up to their face, putting the mask over one ear, whatever it might be. So you can really customize this for your child in particular. And then what you're going to want to do is provide a lot of reinforcement. So a preferred activity or an item after wearing the mask successfully paired with your verbal praise. So like I mentioned, this is going to be a little bit more intensive for you as the caregiver for the child. So your child holds the mask up or wears the mask for 15 seconds, then they get the fun, awesome thing that they were working towards. And then gradually, you're going to increase the time wearing the mask over time, very slowly. The key words here are gradually, over time, very slowly. This is going to be a slow process, right? So we're not going to jump from 15 seconds to 5 minutes. We're going to do 15 seconds, then maybe 30 seconds, then a minute, then maybe 3 minutes, then maybe 5 minutes, right? Again, this is something you'll want to think about with your child, depending again on their age and their need, what works best for them. You'll offer lots of practice for this throughout the day. So your child might be practicing this multiple times a day, maybe 5, 6, 7 times a day, depending on how long it is. If you've added that idea of reinforcement, which I would encourage you to do, your child might be, if you're using M&Ms, they might be eating a lot of M&Ms. If they're watching YouTube videos, they might be watching a lot of YouTube. That's okay. Other things to think about with your shaping procedure, you might want to consider using a timer. So your child knows how long they need to wear the mask. So you set that timer for 15 seconds. And you tell them, you put your mask on, we're going to wear it for 15 seconds. When the timer beeps, you're going to get a Rice Krispie treat, an M&M, to watch Minecraft, whatever the thing is that they want. You get to take the mask off and do this fun thing and try that. So the timer can be really effective here, and then gradually increase that amount of time as you're going along. Other things to consider for your shaping procedure is you can also try to make the practice time fun. So I've seen people do this with screen time with the mask on. So during that interval when your child is wearing the mask, they get free screen time. I think that can be an effective strategy. My only caution with that, if you choose to use it, I think it's great to try, is I would put in a couple sessions where your child does not get to wear the mask, does wear the mask, but does not get screen time. Because you want to make sure that it's not going to be, if you're out and your child is always, when they're wearing their mask, they know they can watch screen time and the iPad runs out of batteries, or you don't have Wi-Fi, or you don't have an iPad that can leave the house, or you only have a desktop, or they're using your phone and you need to be using your phone, just to make sure that you have sort of thought about that and what you would do if the screen time is not available when they're wearing a mask. So that's the idea of the shaping procedure. Like I mentioned, it is a little bit more labor intensive, but can be really effective. But the big takeaways here are that it's slow over time, gradually increasing the amount of time, and adding that component of reinforcement so that they get something fun, and exciting when they wear the mask successfully. So we have a few minutes for questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I'm going to open the Q&A box and take a peek at your questions now. Okay. Someone asked if we were sharing the slides. Yes, we will share the slides. Thanks so much for asking. So someone mentioned that getting her child to wear the mask has been much easier, which I'm really glad to hear. But getting the 5-year-old to cover his nose is more challenging, and ask for any suggestions around that. So the things that I would think about there are considering maybe a shaping procedure, or trying to talk to your child about the importance of having his nose covered. But I would try, first I would try talking to them about it. And then I would try some sort of shaping procedure with short periods of time with the mask over the nose, to see if that can help them to feel more comfortable with it. It can be a strange sensation to have a mask over your nose, and I would try that. So that would be my suggestion there, is to try shaping there. I would also look at some of the resources that we shared. There's one that we shared that's specifically about sensory needs, and so that could be another place to look to see what are some suggestions in there. You could also look at the style of the mask, and see if it's a mask that feels tighter on the top of your child's nose. That could be something else to consider, that he might do better with a mask that felt looser over the top of his nose, or that the ear straps are too tight. I would think about some of those things. So someone asked about if DOE teachers will get consistent training on how to help students keep masks on, or if it will vary from school to school. I do not know the answer to that question. That's a really great question. I would encourage you to reach out to your child's school and ask them about that, because that is not something that I've heard about yet, that DOE teachers will be getting training on how to help students keep their masks on. There was also someone who asked about the mask getting wet when they take it off of their child's face. And she also mentioned that it would feel uncomfortable after a while, which I would agree with. So the things that I would think about, like you mentioned, switching out masks. So trying a different style of mask, a mask that's shaped more like this one that you can see as sort of a dome might be helpful. If this is something that you have access to, because it's, probably can't hear me, because it's further away from your child's mouth and your child's nose. So that might be something that could help. Other things to think about are they do make some masks that have absorbent filters in them. I don't have one that looks like that, but I know you can find them online. So that's something else that you could try. I would also, again, I don't know how old your daughter is or anything like that, but I would also think about asking your child what they're doing and see if they can tell you, and show them some images or videos of different kinds of masks that people are wearing and see which kind they think would be best for them, and do a little bit of trial and error with different styles of masks. Someone asked about how to explain to their child why other families are not wearing their own masks, especially if another child wants to play with their child. It's a really great question. So the things that I would think about there is talking to your child about this, about the idea of minding your own beeswax is what I often say to kids, but that we only can control ourselves, and what other people choose to do is what they choose to do. And our family has decided that wearing masks keeps us safe and keeps other people safe, and so we're doing it. There are people who don't want to wear masks, but we're going to mind our own business, and that's sort of the best explanation you can give. Again, I don't know how old your child is. So I would think about something like that. The other thing to think about is if you are okay with your child playing with kids who are not wearing masks, and that if you are not, that would be something I would set proactively as a rule or expectation, that they know that we only play with kids who are wearing masks when we're out, and that's just a rule and an expectation that our family has. Yeah, that's a really tricky one. Thank you for asking, though. Someone asked about if face shields will be allowed by the DOE. I don't know the answer to that question, actually. I would assume that they would, but again, that is something that I would suggest talking to your child's school about, and something that you could also talk to an educator at Include about, because it might be something where you want to consider adding it to your child's IEP or your child's 504 plan if they have that. So the educators from our helpline could help you with that, and would be able to talk you through the process for adding something to your child's IEP or your child's 504 if your child has an IEP or a 504. But I think the best advice there would be to ask your child's school specifically about face shields. Someone asked about my child has ASD and refuses to wear a mask, and she tells me that it feels like she can't breathe. Should I still try shaping? I would think about trying shaping, but what I would think about if your child is refusing to wear the mask and feels like she can't breathe, I totally empathize with your child, and I hope that this can help. I would start with more exploration of the masks just with her hands, right? So give her 1, 2, 3 different mask options. Let her feel them and spend some time just feeling them, seeing what they feel like when they touch her face, and start there, just with getting her to hold the masks, and then gradually increase what you're asking to holding the mask close to her face, holding the mask near her face, putting the ear straps on, or putting the mask around the back of her head, and just try the shaping. But I would really back it up and start with just touching different mask materials and seeing what feels best for her. I would also think about talking to your child's school setting. If you feel like a mask is going to be really detrimental to your child, I would talk with the staff at her school and see if there are any options, like a face shield or something like that might also be an option for your child. So I would think about some of those things. Someone asked if I have suggestions for children who drool. I think my big suggestions for children who drool is to try different shapes of masks, and to try different fabrics for masks, and to look at masks that may have any sort of absorbent material in them. Like I mentioned before, these dome-shaped masks may be helpful because they're a little bit further away, but thinking about different shapes or different styles of masks could be really helpful for your child. And then someone asked about cartoon masks or colorful masks geared for children. There are a wide variety of masks that are available. You can find masks on websites like Etsy. You can also find them on, I know Old Navy is selling masks. I believe Target is selling masks online. So there are a wide variety of different places you can go to find masks. There are also, if you have the ability to sew, there are easily accessible patterns for making masks online, and you can, make that into a fun activity with your child. They could pick out a fabric, and you could make the mask direct for them that is the best fit and what the style or color or has the character on it or whatever that they like. So yeah, I agree that, the cartoon masks, the colorful masks can be really helpful for kids. If you're not able to get a cartoon mask or a colorful mask, I would encourage you, if you can, get just a plain mask and let them decorate it with markers, paint, glitter. Let them run wild with that. That can also be helpful if you're not able to get a cartoon mask. And I would think that for some kids, it might be more fun to have a mask that they decorated themselves rather than a mask that you bought. But I would try both of those different things. Yeah, but thank you all so very much for coming. I think we've gotten through all of the questions. There's one question here about a thank you for attending. If you send us a note, we can look into that for you. So thank you all so very much for attending. I hope this was helpful. If you have other questions or concerns about your child wearing a mask, or you want to talk to one of our family educators, I would highly encourage you to call our helpline. Please feel free to check out the resources that we dropped in the chat as well. We just got another question in about the playground. When children don't know about social distancing and aren't wearing masks. Yeah, I totally agree. Playgrounds are really challenging right now. The things that I would think about are, again, setting rules and expectations for your child around their own behavior around wearing a mask. Other things I've found helpful in terms of social distancing is trying to make it as clear to your child. So a lot of kids may not know how far 6 feet is, but I've tried things like, and thought about things like putting chalk marks on the ground to show them other kids need to be this far away from you. You need to stay this far away from other kids. Or if it's a playground that you're familiar with and you can tell your child, hey, we're going to the playground on Underhill. And at that playground, I know you really like to go down the purple slide. But when we get to that playground, if there's another child on the steps up to the purple slide, you can't get on the steps until they're at the platform at the top. And then you don't go down the slide until they are off the slide and they've already walked away, right? And so that can help just to message those expectations and make it really clear for your child what social distancing might look like. Other things that I've found helpful in terms of showing them what social distancing looks like is if there's a piece of furniture in your house that's like 6 feet long, or a wall that you can show them and say, you stand here, mom or dad is going to stand here. This is how far apart we should be from each other when we're out. That can also sometimes be helpful just to make it a little bit more concrete for them, especially around the playground where the spacing might not be the same as what they're thinking of. So I hope that was somewhat helpful. But once again, thank you all so much for attending. We really appreciated your feedback and your questions. So thanks so much. Feel free to reach out to our helpline with other questions or concerns, and have a great rest of your evening and a really great week. Thanks so much.